It's legal for them to count votes in Pennsylvania 2 days after the election on November 3rd?
Yes.
You're wrong. Go. I don't even want to talk to you.
I believe that Donald Trump won the election. I believe that they tried to steal the election.
In the MAGA world, there was and is one word, above all, that was and is the core message to his core followers, the word that forms their identity. That word is winning.
It will change. We will have so much winning if I get elected that you may get bored with winning. Believe me, I agree. You'll never get bored with winning. We never get bored.
We must start totally winning and winning and winning again. Remember when I used to say, we're going to win so much? We're going to win that the people of Missouri are going to go to your governor and they're going to say, Governor, please go see the president. We can't stand winning so much. Remember, I used to say that, right?
So if a core value, a core belief of a movement is through me and with me we are all winners, then the greatest threat to such a movement would be losing. Losing just can't happen. It is not conceivable. To call winning into question created a level of cognitive dissonance that was intolerable. It needed to be resolved. The president provided his followers and himself a solution to this problem. He asserted that the election was not lost, it was stolen.
The videos are going viral everywhere. I've seen them on TikTok, I've seen them on Facebook, I've seen them on Fox News, I've seen them on the local news around my area.
I've seen too much pieces of different evidence so far that shows that at this point I would be okay with a revote.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. When you have video footage of people taking bags of ballots and showing that they are for Donald Trump and lighting them on fire.
You are not going to steal this election from me.
When we went to bed on election night, when they told us they stopped counting, we woke up and there was a vertical spike right for Biden, 130,000 votes approximately. That's when I knew there was a problem.
Now, as my buddy Steve Bannon says, if you're going to lie, be believable about it. Because you do not have 138,000 votes come in and 135,000 of them come in for Biden.
This graphic, which has added 2 stages to Kubler-Ross's original 5-stage model, illustrates how we process grief, though we now know the process is not linear. People take a step forward, a step back, go forward again, and back again. But eventually, for most people, most of the time, they do get to acceptance. Shock is normal. Denial is the brain's way of making sure that one doesn't get too high a dose of grief too soon. Anger, bargaining, and all the other delaying tactics we use to soften the blow are understandable and normal too. It's the being stuck, and stuck for a long time in these early stages of grief, that are a problem. Research subsequent to Ross's initial publication of her research has demonstrated that loss is loss, whether we've lost a loved one to death or divorce, or we've lost a family heirloom of significance, or an election to which we have a strong emotional connection. The stages of grief are the same. Clinton supporters reacted to her loss with shock and with sadness. Trump supporters in 2020 reacted with denial and anger, which Trump and his professional class of enablers have relentlessly ginned up and reinforced on a daily basis. This grooming process started back in the 2016 campaign and continued into the 2020 campaign and its aftermath. For true believers, their grief at losing the 2020 election is real and unprocessed. They are frozen in time, unable to go through the natural process of grieving.
It is the most boring and fatiguing task we could devise. Our purpose
to provide each subject with the same dull job so each would have a similar negative experience. In order to obtain the scientific data we need, we use a little subterfuge and say we're studying motor performance. Afterward, they will be told the truth.
Okay, that's fine. Let me tell you now what we're actually studying here. It's the effect of preparatory mental set on performance. Half of the subjects are doing the job cold, just as you did. The rest of the subjects are prepared by being told that the experiment will be very interesting and enjoyable. In fact, lots of fun. Now I have a somewhat unusual request to make of you. The next subject is waiting right outside, but the fellow who ordinarily gives the spiel isn't here. I wonder if you could possibly take his place. As a matter of fact, we figure we'll be needing someone in the future, so I'd like to offer you a $20 retainer and have you remain on call for us. Would that be all right?
$20? That'd be fine.
We'd like to give you $1 as a sort of a retainer and have you remain on call with us. Would that be all right with you?
Yes, that'll be all right.
We divide the group. Half will get $20 to tell someone the dull task is interesting. The other half get $1 for the same job. They all agree to tell an obvious lie.
Okay, thank you very much. The next subject is waiting right outside.
In reality, the subject meets one of our assistants, trained to get them to publicly commit themselves to this untruth.
They gave us some pegs to turn, and turned them for a while, and it was a lot of fun. It was sort of interesting, I guess.
Really? Well, that's strange, because a friend of mine took the experiment last week. I think it was the same experiment, and he said it was pretty miserable, and that I should do everything I could to get out of it.
Well, I think maybe your friend was wrong. Perhaps it was a different experiment, because this was a lot of fun. It appeared to me as if it were a puzzle. We had to turn these knobs, and I tried to figure out what we were doing it for, but I really couldn't figure it out. I'm sure I'll have better luck.
Other theories might predict that the man who is paid most would have the highest motivation for enthusing over the dull task and would be most sold on it himself. Cognitive dissonance theory leads to an exactly opposite prediction. The man who is paid $20 knows that the task is dull, but he also knows that he had sufficient justification for saying that it wasn't. How much did you learn from this experiment?
Learn? Well, I don't think I learned too much from the experiment.
Did you enjoy working on the manual test?
Well, it really wasn't too enjoyable. In fact, it was rather boring.
How about the man who is paid $1? He knows the task is dull, but he has two discrepant thoughts. He also knows that he did not have sufficient justification for saying that it wasn't. For him, there is dissonance. Time after time, we have seen what follows. He reduces the dissonance by changing his opinion about the dullness of the task. Tell me, how much did you learn from this experiment?
Well, at first I don't think I was learning it too much, but when I got into it, I think it was quite interesting, and after a while it got better.
Did you enjoy working on the manual test?
Yes, I enjoyed it.
Would you like to participate in such an experiment again?
Yes, I think I would like to.
Oh, I'm sure. Yes, I'm very thorough with the information I look at. I have my opinions, obviously, but I'm not just gonna go around retweeting blatantly false information or things that I believe that are just. It's just I look at things that are suspicious.
How do you go from almost losing 200,000 in 5 hours? You're down to 30,000 votes away from winning.
A lot of Democrats.
So what happens when a winner, a super winner, loses? You double down. You reduce the dissonance by imagining and repeating ever more wild and conspiratorial alternative facts and stories to explain how you actually won. You don't have to work hard to draw your followers into your dissonance-reducing ideas and activities because they have become just as invested in seeing themselves as winners as you have. You are MAGA, and MAGA is you, and MAGA does not lose. The psychological phenomena of confirmation bias describes our underlying tendency to notice, focus on, and give greater credence to evidence that fits within our existing beliefs. This bias can lead us to make poor decisions because it distorts the reality from which we draw evidence. Under experimental conditions, decision makers have a tendency to actively seek information and assign greater value to evidence confirming their existing beliefs rather than entertaining new ones. This can be considered a form of bias in evidence collection. Conclusions we draw from biased evidence are more likely to be false than those we draw from objective evidence. This is because they are farther from reality. Research conducted on the subject of confirmation bias supports the hypothesis that there is an underlying tendency for us to notice, focus on, and give greater credence to evidence that fits within our existing beliefs. This theory has many similarities to cognitive dissonance theory. It's viewing the same phenomena but through a slightly different lens. Lest, however, we think that confirmation bias is something that applies only to those people, not me, not us, let me ask you to reflect for a moment on a few questions. When you send someone a text or email and they do not reply, have you ever inferred this behavior to have meaning that is consistent with your view of that person, rather than a simpler explanation like, they're really busy, and that's why they didn't respond? Have you never made a judgment about a person based on how they dress or their accent? Right. We all do it, to a greater or lesser extent. It is work to keep bias out of our processing of information. It is very hard to be objective. It is very hard to be truly neutral. Of all the possible explanations for why millions and millions of people believe that the 2020 presidential election was stolen, this is the simplest explanation. And let's remember, in science, simpler explanations trump more complex explanations, unless there's something about the simple explanation that leaves some gap, some part of the phenomena you're studying unexplained. People who choose to get their political information exclusively or mostly from news sources who repeat the same information are likely to believe it. I'm going to quote for you now from a May 2021 article in the journal Cognitive Research Principles and Implications. The article is titled, "The Effects of Repetition Frequency on the Illusory Truth Effect." Here goes. Repeated information is often perceived as more truthful than new information. People tend to perceive claims as truer if they've been exposed to them before. This is known as the illusory truth effect, and it helps explain why advertisements and propaganda work, and also why people believe fake news to be true. Further described in the journal Nature, the authors of the article, "The Psychological Drivers of Misinformation Belief and Its Resistance to Correction," they state that the illusory truth effect arises because people use peripheral cues such as familiarity, which is a signal that a message has been encountered before, processing fluency, a signal that a message is either encoded or retrieved effortlessly, and cohesion, a signal that the elements of a message have references in memory that are internally consistent as signals for truth, and the strength of these cues increases with repetition. Thus, repetition increases belief in both misinformation and facts. Illusory truth can persist months after first exposure, regardless of cognitive ability and despite contradictory advice from an accurate source or accurate prior knowledge. There's nothing really surprising about these findings. There's considerable cognitive literature to support them. Whether it is state-run media in North Korea making use of repetition of false information, or Rupert Murdoch's owned media outlets in the UK or US, repetition is the #1 methodology used to reinforce information known to be demonstrably inaccurate. This graphic from the same article summarizes the other prime cognitive and socioaffective drivers that make the adoption of false beliefs more likely. We associate the term intimacy with physical intimacy, sex, but that is only one manifestation of intimacy. Intimacy in a relationship is a feeling of being close, as well as emotionally connected to and supported by another person, or in some cases, to a group of people. In an intimate relationship, we are able to share a whole range of thoughts, feelings, and experiences that we likely would not share with others. The sharing of such feelings with others who we do not feel close to would likely be perceived as socially inappropriate and might well indeed provoke social sanctions. This is what makes the sharing of highly personal feelings and thoughts so risky. Simply put, Donald Trump's core supporters love him. They really love him. And often, as we all know, most of us know, love is often blind. For those of you who have had the experience of falling in love, and I hope that is most of you, you know from your own personal experiences that when we are in this altered state of consciousness, our ability to accurately appraise the one we love is highly compromised. We see patterns that simply are not there. In her dissertation titled, "Is Love Really Blind?" Lisa Matthews says, research has confirmed the tendency for individuals to turn a blind eye to another's faults and imperfections in order to create a positive illusion of the significant other. She goes on to say, it has been found that when one is in love, while one area of the brain is activated, another area, which happens to be the area responsible for critical thought, it is suppressed. This finding explains the difficulty of making rational decisions when in love. Additionally, she points out, quote, love can prevent one from seeing the negative aspects of the one that they love, which can often be a risk to the individual in love that they fail to see the warning signs of unreciprocated affection. And I would add, when we do see such signs, they produce such cognitive dissonance that our brains work hard to cover them up, sometimes work really overtime. So it is not difficult to see how the impaired accuracy of our love-struck pattern recognition capabilities lead to poor outcomes, outcomes we would have ordinarily avoided if we had not been in love.
Show me your mystery, show me your shame, tell me your secret code. Forget every lesson that you ever learned about the middle of the road. Oh, and let's break the bank and the rules and the chains. Do everything that we ever dreamed of. Let's build a fire and let it get gonna feel quite the same. Oh, and I will show you my conscience, show you my shame, every hurt that I am made of. Let's build a fire and let it get hot. Let's go down in the flames of love.
Let's take a moment to remind ourselves that at times, none of us get the memo. We all have views that are products of our unique historical and cultural times. We all use cognitive dissonance reducing strategies most of the time to keep our worldviews and self-images intact. It isn't just Trump true believers, or Netanyahu, or Putin true believers, or the followers of any number of cult-like autocratic leaders from around the world. We all share the same DNA, and all of us, at one time or another, are believers. And believers embrace non-objective realities. That's just how we are wired.